to talk a little bit about how to write to a concept application FRQ. It's one of the two types of FRQs that you might encounter on an AP exam. And we're going to focus on that right now. We'll move into research methods FRQ a little later in this unit. So what I want you to remember is something called IDA, Identify, Define, Apply. I'm going to start by giving you a sample concept application FRQ. And here it goes. Annabelle is planning to apply to college, but has not yet decided where she will apply. Describe how the following psychological concepts and terms relate to her choice. And there's a whole bunch of terms that will be given to you. And we're going to start with just looking at one called the availability heuristic. Now, I know you don't know what that is, but we will talk about what that is so that you can practice applying it to Annabelle. The second part of the concept application FRQ, and usually there is a second part, is usually a follow-up, like explain how well the following psychological concepts could relate to how well Annabelle adapts when she begins her college career. So I picked agoraphobia, which again, we will explain it. So what is each part of this question asking? Well, the first part is about Annabelle's choice, relating her choice of which college to apply to. So make it clear that when you address this question and this part of the question, you're addressing how she makes a decision about where to apply to college. Okay. The second part of the question is about how well Annabelle is adapting to college. So remember that these are two different questions, even though it's all related to Annabelle and college. So IDA is what we're remembering: identify, define, and apply. And step one is identifying. And identifying can happen in many ways. You really just want the person who's reading your FRQ to know which part of the FRQ you're addressing. So you're identifying the term or the concept that you're addressing at that moment in time. We usually ask you to underline it, and it serves two purposes. Number one, again, the person who's reading your essay, it's really easy to know what they need to score. It's also for you that underlining is a visual reminder that you actually addressed the point. So we would start with, for the first part of this FRQ, the availability heuristic is. So we underlined availability heuristic. Now there are other ways you can identify. You could separate each term into its own paragraph, and that would be good for identification as well. The second part we want you to do is to define the term or the concept. Not every term or concept has a definition that you can easily and readily define, but we're going to start with that for practicing now. So while the College Board does not usually give points for definitions alone, sometimes your definition helps you to score the point, so it is good to define it. And again, it serves two purposes. Number one, it helps to clarify your understanding of the term as you're writing it on paper. But also, like I said, sometimes with a student definition, they use a keyword that can be used to earn the point. So I would define, and I'm going to show you what availability heuristic is. The availability heuristic is making a decision based on what first pops into your mind. So if I said to you, what do you want to eat for dinner? And the first thing that comes to your mind is macaroni and cheese. That would be based on the availability heuristic. So again, we're looking at Annabelle. So we're saying that the availability heuristic is making a decision based on what first pops into your mind. And in this case, what's going to pop into her mind first when asked, where is she going to apply to college? And now apply. We're taking that definition and we're applying it to the prompt. We're applying it to Annabelle's decision about where she is applying to college. So we don't want to parrot the prompt, right? You don't want to say exactly what's in the prompt. You don't want to repeat, Annabelle is applying to college but has not yet decided where she will apply. She will use the availability heuristic to decide to apply to the University of Maryland. That doesn't really help. I need you not to rely on the definition to score. If you repeat something that you wrote in the definition, that's okay. So you could write, the availability heuristic is making a decision based on what first pops into your mind. Annabelle decides to apply to the University of Maryland because she lives in Maryland, and it's the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about where to apply to college. Okay? So you can see I did not parrot the prompt. I did not rely on my definition of availability heuristic to score this point. And I now have met the criteria of applying it to applying the concept to the FRQ prompt. Okay. So I have to
Your
wait here for a
homeroom
second.
packets and homeroom information items to hand out are in your mailboxes, so please come on down and get that information and the packets to hand out to the students. Thank you.
And I also wanted to note to you, again, the prompt says, explain or describe how the following psychological concepts and terms relate to her choice. Note that I didn't use the word choice. I'm saying when thinking about apply to college, we used a phrase that explained what that was. She decides rather than chooses. And sometimes it's good to just use synonyms. It makes sure that you're understanding the prompt and that you're not parroting it when you're answering it. So again, when you're moving on to the next term, you can skip a line, or if you're going to continue to underline, it's just easier for the person reading it if you skip a line and move on to the next point. Now, there were, I think, 4 points in the first part of the prompt. I'm only going to address one in this video. So we're going to now go to the second part of the FRQ, and it's explain how the following psychological concepts could relate to how well Annabelle adapts when she begins her college career. And we're choosing agoraphobia. So we've skipped a line, and we're going to now address agoraphobia. Once again, I want to identify the term agoraphobia is, and I'm underlining agoraphobia, and I'm putting it into a separate paragraph. So those are both great ways to identify that that's the part of the prompt you're addressing. Now I'm going to define agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is when a person avoids places that they fear they might be trapped and unable to escape. It often leads to a person crippled with anxiety anytime they have to leave their home. So that's what agoraphobia is. You may be stuck at home if you're agoraphobic, but usually what it is that you're just avoiding places where you feel that you could be trapped and not able to escape. You might not like being in a wide open place because you fear that if you have a panic attack, no one's going to be able to help you. Crowded places might be a problem for you. Okay. And now I'm applying it to Annabelle because remember, we have to take agoraphobia and explain how it would impact her ability to adapt. So explain how the following psychological concept could relate to how well Annabelle adapts when she begins her college career. Obviously, she has agoraphobia, not very well, okay? But we're not going to parrot the prompt. We're going to use synonyms. So again, the example starts with the identification and the definition. Agoraphobia is when a person avoids places that they fear they might be trapped and unable to escape. It often leads to a person crippled with anxiety anytime they have to leave their home. Now I'm going to apply it. If Annabelle has agoraphobia, she may not want to leave her dorm room and she will not make any friends and will not do well in her classes since she doesn't go. Okay, that tells you, it gives you a very concrete application of how Annabelle would not do well in college. She's not going to make friends and she's not going to go to her classes. So clearly she's not going to do well in her classes. You could have said she might fail her classes, and you can make it to the extreme. Okay. The student, in this case, the example gives you, like I said, 2 ways in which Annabelle would probably not do well in college. Okay, so that's it for at least my video on this. If you missed class today, you can at least maybe go back to this. And we're going to be practicing this in class by using some of the other terms. And you're going to be writing your own FRQ next.